right, everybody, thank you for joining us this morning. We are going to try to make this quick today and just give you some information on some storm prep and what you can do to prepare yourself and your business for the Louisiana disasters that are sure to come this year. So, with that being said, I will pass it over to Henry.
Thank you, Stephanie. I appreciate it. All right. Well, thank y'all so much for joining us and watching this video either live right now or recorded later on. We do have some very important information. Turnkey Solutions was founded in 1999, and our original goal was to just be an amazing service and a blessing to our clients and to our community. And one of the things that we found over the years is that there's a lot that gets in the way of trying to make that happen. From not only just computer problems to disasters like the server failed, but also here in Louisiana and kind of the Gulf South, we have these things called hurricanes, and man, do they mess stuff up. We've gone through Katrina, Rita, Gustav, a ton of others, snowstorms, fires, floods, just you name it. And there's if it's not for the hackers, there's something in nature trying to mess things up, either for ourselves or for our clients. So we find that it's a very good exercise once a year at the least to kind of stop and think through what's the plan, how effectively did the plan work last time, and let's make sure that anything that's changed is ready to go. And that's what we're here today to discuss with you. So today is part one of a two-part quick little video series I wanted to walk through about storm prep here for 2021. And the first part here is we're going to talk about the plan and getting it ready for your team and making sure that your team has access to it. One of the things that we'll start with is not the full disaster recovery plan. We're going to talk about a few core things that here at Turnkey we've learned, just the starter things, that if you had a few core simple elements, if you had a disaster recovery plan that was just not fully fledged and just a 4,000 page document, but if it was a short and sweet thing, if you had to pick, what are the things you would put in there? So we'll talk about those real quick. And second, we'll talk about how to quickly, effectively, and kind of reliably get it in front of your people, your team, and how to make sure that they have access to it when stuff happens, because that's really important. So that they have access to the plan. So yeah, like Stephanie mentioned, this is 2021 is predicted to be a good hurricane season if you're a hurricane tracker, but for the rest of us, it's predicted to be a bad hurricane season if you're the ones that are affected by it. So let's walk kind of through it. First up, the core starter elements of your disaster recovery plan, and we'll be glad to help you with this. I'll be glad to share any of the documents that we've built over the years that are parts of our plan. And again, I'm not going to go through everything that should be in every kind of a response plan, just kind of thinking through a storm plan. What are the basics that need to be in every business's plan? And the first thing about that plan is it has to be super accessible to the team. If your team cannot find that plan when things are going bad, when there's a disaster, when there's a hurricane in the Gulf, when there's a snowstorm or a flood that was a complete surprise, if they can't get to it, then the plan is worthless. All the rest of this conversation is kind of a moot point. So it's got to be super accessible to the team. It's got to be reviewed and trained on with the team. So this is an important element that they have to have immediate access to it when they need it, but they also have to understand it and have kind of walked through it. Maybe not do a full fire drill like we did in grade school every time, but at least they need to have walked through it, seen it before, kind of been explained a few parts of it. It's got to have top-down participation and buy-in. this is an incredibly important part of it. Your corporate leadership kind of has to know the deal, and they have to see the plan. And if they're not going to draft it and draw it up, they've at least got to say, yes, I bless this. I think this is a good plan. Or no, I wouldn't want the team to have to do this in a scenario. Or I don't think that's the way I'd like my company to work in this scenario or this situation. We found that a lot of plans, when implemented, kind of surprised some people in leadership, because those people weren't really involved in the drafting or at least in the review process. So next up is that the plan and the disaster recovery plan for your document should be kind of a clear, this is what you're going to do. It's got to be a clear policy statement or a plan statement from the company, not just kind of a wishy-washy, we might want to recommend you do X, Y, and Z, or just kind of a hope or a wish list. This needs to be something that your organization says this is the deal, just like you have a human resources plan or a policy, just like you have an employment policy or other things that are really core and just cannot be violated. The company needs to specifically state, in a bad scenario, this is how we will function. And if that is a pretty small list of we will do X, Y, and Z's, then that's great. You got to make sure that they're at least specifically, that they are specifically stated. So next up, the basic idea from there is that the plan has got to have kind of a clear establishment of who's the team, who's leading a disaster incident. It should state somewhere early on in the policy or in the plan that this person or these people will be the hierarchy. Here's who we communicate to, and here's who's going to lead this effort. Even if it kind of has some variables in there about, maybe your manager will be who you talk to, or these class of people can state, we're not coming into the office because it's a hurricane or whatever. It should clearly state a few key people or a few key positions that will have the ability to pull the trigger on certain things, and who should we report to in that kind of scenario. Because if you think about it, in the normal day-to-day at the office, wherever it is that you're working right now, the people that you report to and kind of how the hierarchy works is pretty clear, most organizations, and people don't have a whole lot of questions about that. But you take away the four walls and there's a lot of chaos and confusion about, well, who do I report to? Who do I call into? What do I do? I think there's maybe a hurricane somewhere out in the Gulf. Does that mean that we shouldn't do this? Or should we wait for somebody specifically named to state, here's the issue. We're experiencing a hurricane, or we're experiencing a fire at the office, or whatever, don't come in. So it should have clear clarification about who can pull the trigger on that. It should contain a communication plan. And again, this is not everything, but it should have a few key things in your plan about how do we communicate, like specific telephone numbers or websites or email addresses that they should go to communicate with you as a company. I don't think it needs to be extensive, but we recommend all of our clients have maybe a telephone number or a paging system or a text broadcast system that they can communicate with their staff when maybe the email servers are down, or maybe the phone system at the office is down. Have all that set up ahead of time so that your team knows, hey, if I get a text message from this specific number, it's the company and they're telling me something. So have your plan should have a definite communication plan, and it should list out some specific telephone numbers or email addresses or websites where you want to bring communication around. Now, next up, well, so kind of summarize, that's the high level of the things that it should contain. Notice I didn't specify what the plan is in a specific scenario. Take, for example, a hurricane. Let's say a tornado comes through and razes your building to the slab. I did not specify in here what your work plan should be. That's all very important, and it needs to be in there. But at least we got to start with these, and they will, I think, drive a lot of conversation in your organization around, okay, well, now we've got the team, now we've got it documented, we've got a Word document started or something started here, and here's who we're going to communicate with and how we're going to communicate with them. So now from there, the team can start drafting out that policy, and that will organically come, I believe, after you've started with these core kind of starter pieces. This is maybe the soup starter, the roux for your disaster recovery plan, and the rest of it will kind of come when you're evolved from there. So next up, one of the first things that I mentioned is that we really believe it's terribly important that you make sure that your plan is somewhere that everybody can get to it. If it's in a binder and it's in your office and there is nowhere that anybody can get to it, then when a hurricane or when a fire or something like that happens, then there's no way for you to be able to get that plan to people. So what we're really recommending people do nowadays is look at where can we put this in the cloud? How can we safely store it somewhere that's really easily accessible, that people can get to from their smartphones, that they can get to and bookmark really easily in the case of, if something goes bad. So that, think about it, 6 o'clock in the morning, they don't have to be trying to figure out where do I go find what the plan is, what's my manager's telephone number, what's that hotline number, who do I report into, how do I get my paycheck, that kind of stuff. You don't want to have to do that. You don't want to have people scrambling to try to find the plan. They should be able to get to it simply. A couple ideas here. Some things that we come across that are pretty common is, first off, let's email it to everybody. Well, the bad thing about email is that it's, for starters, it's using your email as kind of a filing cabinet or a storage place for documents forever has some real implications, some real problems. It's harder to find stuff. It's hard to search your email. If you ever look in your Outlook or your email on your phone and try to find that one really important thing that somebody sent you 5-6 years ago, or even sometimes a couple days ago, maybe you've experienced what I have, is that email is not the best place to kind of index and tag and categorize data around a place where it'll be easy to get a hold of. So that's an important thing to keep in mind around maybe why we don't recommend email. Next up, we really don't recommend and love printing out your storage plan, your disaster recovery plan as the sole and only place to put it. It's great to print it out and share it and communicate around the office for maybe once or twice a year when you review it with people, if you want to do it that way. But I don't recommend that be the only place again. So some ideas. Here's some things that I think have evolved and have come a long way over the years and are really simple to do and set up. If your company has an existing portal that you use, that you send everybody to, and it could be a million different things, like a web page that only your team can access, and everybody's already communicating around that, and they live and die and they start their day and close out their day in that portal, that would be the best place to put it. Put it as a link, put it as a document, something that's upfront and quickly and easily accessed. If you don't have a company portal, we really love nowadays SharePoint. Microsoft 365 plans pretty much all come with SharePoint, Office 365, Microsoft 365, whatever you want to call it. They all have access and plans where SharePoint is an option. It is a great cloud-based portal where you can store it, and it's very easy to set it up so that it's easily accessed by only your team. Or if you don't have that, Turnkey Solutions has a cloud-based portal that all of our clients have all of their information accessible in. We'll show you that. It's web-based, it's very simple to access, and you can put your disaster recovery plan there. So some really simple ideas. Those last three probably won't cost you anything. So let's look at some options that real quickly that we're going to recommend as really good. The first off is the Turnkey Solutions portal. As a client of Turnkey Solutions, you have access to this. It is accessed at https://portal.tkscloud.com, and a simple idea there is when you log to that portal, there's a tremendous amount of content that's available. A ton of information, and I'm going to show off my screen. Hopefully it's sharing the screen there. But there's a ton of information that you and your company will have access to, and that you can put around there, from disaster recovery plans that we'll show you in just a second, even to some basic things like your backup reports and all kind of stuff in there. But one of the things that I wanted to show you as an example is that in the portal, you can store your disaster plan. Just make it part of your knowledge base. If you have a knowledge base for here's how we get our timesheets in, here's how we do X, Y, and Z things in our office, then you can store also a link to your disaster recovery plan. And so for here at Turnkey Solutions, we've got a link to ours right there. So we'll pull it up, and you can store it as a PDF or a web page or any kind of things. Here I just put a link directly to the Word version of it. So that's just an idea. So that is kind of step one, or option one is you can put it in Turnkey Solutions Cloud portal. If you'd like access to that, by all means, please do feel free to ask us, and we can help you set that up if you don't already have access to it. Next up is the idea of SharePoint. Now, most clients nowadays we're finding are developing some sort of infrastructure and some sort of access into SharePoint. And an example there for how Turnkey Solutions uses SharePoint is, I'll switch real quickly to here. We've got a portal, just kind of a home landing page that we put in. Just right up there, we've got some basic policies and procedures and policies for technical issues, and maybe even some policies that really quickly we can share with clients. But right up front, we put that, Turnkey Solutions Disaster Recovery Plan. It's a link to the same thing. So we've got a couple different places that we're experimenting with and playing with it, and putting it in as many places as we can. But our staff all knows that they live and kind of die based on that. Maybe not die, but they live and breathe inside of our SharePoint portal, and that is just publicly accessible to them with their username and password. Same with the other portal, but it's a very simple place to store that. It takes minutes to set up a SharePoint website and make it secure to where only your team can get to it. And if they can remember their password to log into their email or their computer at the office, they can get into that. So as you can see, it's pretty simple. There's a whole lot of options, and all that's accessible from a cell phone, 24/7, 365, whether or not maybe the building is still in good shape, or whether or not things at the office are accessible. So just a couple ideas. So that's the big part there. Part two, June 15, what we want to look through is on Tuesday of next week is we're going to look at how to understand your backup reports in 5 minutes or less. It's an incredibly simple reporting system. We're going to show you how to get to them, how to access them at any time through our secure portal. And we're going to show you how to read them, and we're going to have one of our technicians online on the meeting to kind of walk through. Here's what this block means. Here's what this data means, and how to set up. How to maybe implement changes or how to ask questions kind of really effectively about what does this data mean, and how do I know if this is backed up or that's backed up, and that kind of thing. So if you have anybody at your company that you'd like to get registered for that, or if you're watching this on a replay, kind of in the same forum, wherever you found this video, that part 2 will be there. So we look forward to seeing you online there. If you want to get registered for that, just email us at ask@tks.la if you missed the invite, and we'll make sure and get you registered. So that's the big stuff. That's what I wanted to kind of walk through today. I hope this was helpful. If you have questions about anything that we talked about here, please email us, ask@tks.la. Call us at 225-751-4444, or check out our website, our Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, the blogs. We've got a ton of information out there where we're trying really hard to make sure that we get relevant, timely, very beneficial information to you, our clients, because we find it very honorable to serve you. We love the opportunity to be a part of your team. We appreciate your business. And if there's anything that we can do to be more helpful, then please let us know. So we look forward to seeing you on Tuesday next week for part 2, where we're going to walk through how to read your backup reports. And we hope that we don't have to use any of this stuff all season, all 2021. We hope that this was preparation for preparation's sake only, and that we never have to implement this. But in case you do, we're going to have you ready. Talk to you soon. Have a great weekend.